In the grounds of his high school, Light Yagami discovers a notebook that claims to be able to kill anyone whose name and face are known to its owner. Light dismisses the so-called Death Note as a hoax, but after testing its powers, he discovers that these claims are indeed real. The original owner, a Shinigami named Ryuk, approaches Light and explains that the notebook now belongs to him. Since Light is the new owner, he is the only one who can see and hear Ryuk. The Shinigami also says that when Light's time to die comes, Ryuk will write Light's name in his personal death note. Light decides to use the Death Note's power to rid the world of evil and become the god of a new, peaceful world. As criminals begin dying from inexplicable heart attacks, Interpol convenes to discuss the phenomenon. Unable to explain it, they turn to the world's top-ranked detective, L, whose true identity is a closely guarded secret. L speaks to the Interpol representatives through a computer and an electronic voice, promising them that they are dealing with mass murder and that he will soon confront the killer, whom the general public has been calling Kira, the Japanese pronunciation of the English word killer. This displeases Light, who had been going to great lengths to keep the Death Note hidden. L tricks Light into revealing that Kira lives in Japan's Kanto region with a television broadcast. A humiliated Light swears to eliminate L. Police authorities discuss the Kira case with L upon inquiring about the time of death of the victims. L concludes that Kira is likely a student with a naive concept of justice. He requests data on how the victims were publicized and begins to suspect that Kira has access to police information. Because the police officer in charge of the Kira case, Soichiro Yagami, is Light's father, Light can monitor the authorities' movements. Meanwhile, Ryuk tells Light that he is being followed. He also explains at Shinigami get the lifespans of people they have taken before their time, and their eyes can see everyone's name and lifespan floating above their heads. He gives Light the option to trade half his remaining lifespan for the eyes of a Shinigami, just like Ryuk's. Light tells Ryuk that he is trying to create an ideal world where no criminals are left unpunished, and that as the god of such a world, he cannot sacrifice half of his life for the Shinigami eyes. Light begins experimenting to find out how much control he has over how a criminal dies. Using this knowledge, Light devises a plan to find out who has been following him. He makes a drug dealer hijack a bus on which Light, and by extension, his follower, are passengers. During the hijacking, Light manipulates his tracker to reveal that he is Ray Penber, a federal agent from the United States employed by L and his associate Wateri. Light waits 1 week before killing Ray Penber. He follows Ray onto a train and forces him to write down the names of his fellow agents on a piece of the death note by threatening Ray's family. Because of the simultaneous death of these 12 FBI agents in Japan, the police are scared to continue investigating. And the American president pulls the FBI off the Kira case. However, Penber's fiancée Naomi Misora, a former FBI agent, seeks to find Kira for revenge. The Japanese police, who were previously unaware that there were FBI agents in Japan, conclude that L hired them to investigate the Japanese police and their families, causing them to distrust L. Chief Soichiro Yagami announces and because of the heightened stakes of the case, any officer who no longer wishes to work on the Kira investigation may leave, and would not be demoted for doing so. Only 5 officers decide to remain on the case. In an effort to repair his relations with the Japanese police, L meets in secret with the remaining detectives who want to work on the Kira case. He reveals his thoughts about how Kira might be following the murders of the FBI agents and pinpoints who the federal agents were tracking during that period. Meanwhile, Light meets a woman who introduces herself as Shoko Maki. As the two talk, he realizes that she is Penber's fiancée and that she has worked out that Kira can kill by means other than heart attacks, information she plans to share with the police. Light decides that he must eliminate this woman. Light writes the name Shoko Maki on the death note. When nothing happens, he coaxes her true name, Naomi Misora, out of her by pretending to work for Elle as the death note takes effect. Light informs her that he is Kira and watches as Naomi walks away to commit suicide. Meanwhile, Wateri reveals his identity in the meeting with Light's father and the other detectives. He gives the detectives special gadgets embedded in clothing in the event Kira comes into contact with them or they are in trouble. Detective Shuichi Aizawa is sent to the police headquarters by Elle and Zhu. Mrs. Naomi handing her driver's license to Light is a form of identification. Elle is close to discovering the identity of Kira. Misora's disappearance causes Elle to shortlist the people who were being tracked by the FBI at the time of Ray Penber's death. He requests surveillance equipment to be installed in the homes of those he suspects, including Soichiro Yagami's son. Light, however, becomes aware that he is being watched and has Ryuk locate all the cameras in his room. He deceives the surveillance team by watching the news on a portable television hidden in a bag of potato chips and Conti. News to kill the criminals being reported. Elle's suspicions are momentarily subdued, but he does not discard the possibility that Light may be Kira and decides to meet him in person. At the college entrance exams, Light notices a mysterious and eccentric student staring at him, who introduces himself as Hideki Ryuga, the same name as a famous idol. Light is shocked when Hideki Ryuga reveals himself as Elle. Since it would be too suspicious for Elle to die right after meeting Light, he decides to befriend Elle, gather more information about his true identity, and kill him at a later time. In a bid to profile Light's behavior, Elle challenges him to a game of tennis. Elle asks him some questions regarding the Kira case and invites him to help in the investigation. The two then receive news that Soichiro Yagami has had a heart attack and is in the hospital. Light promises to his father that he will make sure Kira is caught and executed for making him suffer. On the way out, Elle confronts and scrutinizes Light. Still uncertain whether or not he is Kira, Light attempts a bluff and demands to be placed in a prison cell without television for 1 month to prove his innocence. Elle is satisfied but curious that Light should offer this proposition. Meanwhile, television station Sakura TV receives audio tapes from an anonymous person claiming to be Kira. The Kira investigation team is discussing the disappearance of Naomi Misora when Wateri interrupts their meeting. Sakura TV is broadcasting an audio tape which is allegedly from Kira. To prevent Kira from gaining public support, Elle demands that the broadcast be stopped. Hirokazu Ukita, one of the investigators working with Elle, rushes to Sakura TV but mysteriously dies in front of the station. The investigation team realizes that Kira no longer needs to know the person's name to kill and panics. Light, who is not responsible for the tapes or Ukita's death, decides to involve himself in the Kira investigation to gather intelligence on Elle. Meanwhile, Elle suspects that the person behind the broadcast must be a different Kira from the one they are chasing. At the end of the episode, a young girl named Misa Amane is seen discussing her admiration for Kira with a Shinigami named Rem. And she reveals that she has made the trade for Shinigami eyes. Light meets with Elle and the detectives. To test Light's analytical skills, Elle has him listen to the record ings confiscated by the team to determine if there are any clues in the reader's voice. In this way, Elle concludes that Light cannot be Kira. The team then broadcasts a recording made by Elle and Light to trick the second Kira into replying. Misa unwittingly reveals important details about the properties of the Death Note and Shinigami when she responds and Light begins to panic. In her reply, Misa adds that the first Kira meet her in person. Shocked and wanting to pursue this lead, the investigation team formulates a plan, while Light decides what to do. Meanwhile, Rem explains to Misa that she knows how to kill a Shinigami, to make them fall in love with a human. Rem tells Misa the story of a Shinigami named Jealous who obsessively watched over Misa from the Shinigami realm. One night, as a deranged stalker threatened to kill both Misa and himself, Jealous wrote the stalker's name in his death note, ending his own life and adding the remainder of his lifespan to Misa's. Detective tutor Matt, Suda and Light volunteer to go to Oyama to investigate on the date mentioned in the journal entry. Light intends to find out who the second Kira is, and in order to keep his identity unknown to the Shinigami following Misa, he gets a group of his friends to surround them while they walk. Possessing the Shinigami eyes, however, Misa finds out that Kira is Light Yagami because his lifespan is the only one she can't see. Later, Misa confirms to the investigation team that she has found the real Kira. The team decides to change their approach and try to reason with her. They release a television broadcast condemning Kira as a heartless murderer who will kill anyone who discovers his identity. Furthermore, they offer to lessen the severity of the punishment the second Kira will face if she reveals information about the real Kira. Misa ignores this, finds Light and explains that she tracked him down because she loves him. After Light introduces Misa to Ryuk, the two discuss their plans to get rid of L. Taking advantage of the situation and of Misa's love for him, Light concludes that he can use her to mislead L, while furthering his plans for a better world. Mrs. Shinigami, Rem, however, threatens to write down Light's name in her own death note if Mrs. safety is compromised. In the meantime, L is thrown off the trail by the second Kira and is confused by the new audio tape spoof, supposedly denouncing the police's attempt to make the first Kira appear as a pariah. L concludes that the two Kiras might have met and are working towards the same goal. Worried at the prospect that he might be murdered, as he is convinced the two Kiras have met, L demands that in the event of his death, Light should be arrested. Later, Light and L meet each other outside college. Much to the anger and frustration of Light, Misa appears and converses with the two. Minutes after Misa leaves, Light receives the news from L that she has been arrested on grounds of being the second Kira. Misa appears to be blindfolded and tied to a chair, while L instructs Wateri to torture her to obtain information. A few days later, Misa relinquishes ownership of her death note, thus erasing her memories of its existence. Light decides to tell L that he thinks that he may be Kira subconsciously and wishes to be confined. Light's father also believes it is a good idea that he himself be confined to a cellar, as he cannot risk his emotions getting the better of him in this investigation. Light concocts a plan whereby he tells Ryuk he will relinquish ownership of the death note at any time in a discreet discussion, while being monitored by L. After Light's imprisonment, Kira's executions stop and L's suspicion is heightened. Light chooses this time to give up the death note, ensuring he will lose his memories of being Kira. His change in behavior puzzles L. Light goes from being calm to completely desperate. The Kira executions then resume and the new spate of killings confuses L in a last bid to determine if Light and Misa are the two Kiras. L and Soichiro stage a stunt in which Light's father attempts to kill Light and then himself out of shame. Seeing Light and Misa's reactions to it, L intervenes and announces that he no longer suspects them of being Kira, although he is still suspicious over the fact that Misa's DNA was found on the audio tapes. Misa is released, but Light continues working on the Kira case. L and Wateri move the investigation team's headquarters to a new building inside the city. Elsewhere, Rem speaks to a mysterious businessman about the death note. 8 businessmen then plan the next murder Kira will commit in order for the Yotsuba group to excel in the market. L proposes that he be tied to Light, causing a scuffle to break out in the new headquarters. It is some time until Kira begins killing again, which has L and Light thinking that Kira may be killing for monetary profit. Their suspicions lead them to the Yotsuba Group, a rich organization that dominates global markets. Kira is also reported to have been sending threats to politicians, and the investigation team is forced to conduct their operations in secret. As far as the public is concerned, Th. A Kira investigation remains unsolved and the team is disbanded. At this point, L brings two new members to the investigation team, Iber and Wedi.